Hello all, my name is Jordan Mittler, and today we're going to be looking at editing documents and using tools called word processors to engage, to format, and to edit your own documents, your own files. And whether you've created, edited, or worked with documents in the past, you're in the right place, because I'm going to show you today, and you're hopefully going to walk away with a broad introduction so that you yourself can go create and edit your own documents. And the way you could do this is using a tool called a word processor, which is a program or machine for storing, manipulating, and formatting text entered from a keyboard and providing a printout. And the idea here is that you're able to use a word processor to type information, to put images together, to use charts and data and tables to create your own documents that could be either shared online or even printed out using an actual physical printer. And one of the most popular word processing tools is Microsoft Word. There are many others, and a lot of what we're going to discuss today applies to other tools, such as Apple's Pages. But for the purposes of today, and for beginners that are getting started with word processing, Microsoft Word is the very streamlined standard starting ground and a very user-friendly tool for interacting with documents themselves. Now, when you open up Microsoft Word for the first time, and we'll open it up in just a second, you're going to see all the way at the top of the screen what we call a menu bar or a toolbar that looks something like this, with a lot of different shorthand images and little letters and different symbols that do certain things. And these are all different types of icons, which icons itself, and the way you should understand the way icons work, is the idea that it's a little image or an infographic that tells you what it will do without really spilling it out. So for example, you'll see the letter B here, which I'll tell you stands for the word bold, and you notice it even highlighted that B. It made it a bit thicker, which is what bold does. So it's giving you a hint. It's really telling you what that button will do by clicking on it, simply by looking at the icon. So with regard to Microsoft Word and technology more generally, you want to feel comfortable approaching and clicking on icons, whether you've used them in the past or not, because usually you can detect and kind of infer what will happen when you click on that button simply by looking at the icon itself. But again, this is the menu bar. This is the toolbar that will appear at the top of your page when you open up Microsoft Word. Now, when you open up a new document, you create a new document from scratch, which means it has nothing on it. It's from zero. You could play around with text and images and different forms of content. But I want to point out some of the important buttons you have here so that when we open it up, you'll be very familiar with the types of things that you yourself can click on. Starting from the left, it says Calibri Body, which is the name of a font. It's the name of a style of text. That's what a font means, a style of text. And the idea here is that depending on what your document may or may not be used for, you could decide and choose a font that fits whatever purpose you're trying to make and whatever purpose you're trying to build with your specific document. And you'll see different fonts in what I'm referring to when we open it up itself. Next, we have 11 with, again, a drop-down menu similarly to the font space, which will allow you to adjust the size of the text itself from the biggest size all the way up to in the thousands to 1, to even one of the smallest sizes. And that will tell you how big or how small the text will appear on the page. And you could either put in a number by tapping on the 11 and adjusting that number, or by tapping on the drop-down menu and seeing some of the common sizes that people frequently use when creating and building documents. On the right, we have the B, as mentioned, which stands for bold. It makes your text a bit thicker and allows your text to stand out on a page that has a lot going on. Next to that, we have a little slanted I, which stands for Italicize, and that tilts your text, that slants your text a little bit, which again is used for making text stand out, or even for frequently for sourcing or for citing a specific book or a specific piece of literature that you've used in your document. We also have the U with the line under it, which indicates underline, and that will simply put a line below the text that you're putting into your document. And then I'll skip over the highlight button you can or cannot use, not super frequent. We have the A with the red line under it, which indicates color of the text itself. And this will adjust the color of the text that you're putting into your Microsoft Word or whatever word processor tool you're using You could do this either before you begin typing or after, and that actually applies to a lot of what we've mentioned so far, and you'll see even closer when we open up the tool itself. But the idea here is that you could adjust your formatting either before you begin putting in information, or once you've already completed and put in all the information you want, then go back in and do all these sorts of formatting critiques and really make those specific edits. And lastly, I'll mention is that little A with the eraser mark found at the bottom right, which is the clear formatting. And this is sometimes helpful when you want to kind of reset what you've done. If you maybe added a color and a bold and you changed the font and you want to bring it back to where you started initially, you could, of course, use the undo button as you would really on any sort of application on your devices. But this A with the eraser mark is very helpful for clearing the formatting and bringing you back to where you started initially. It's also helpful if you're copying and pasting from an outside source. For example, if you're using an article, you're bringing in an article from a specific web page that may have its own font and its own formatting, and you bring it into your document, you might want to bring it to that same formatting of your document itself. And by using that A with the eraser mark, you're able to really scratch all the formatting and start from scratch. So these are some of the kind of important items that you'll find in, as mentioned, the menu bar or the toolbar at the top of Microsoft Word, and similarly in other word processing tools. But what we're going to do now is open up the tool and take a look at it itself. So here you can see I've opened up a blank page, a new document on Microsoft Word. And when you open it up for the first time, you'll be asked whether you want to open up a new document or an existing document. And if you want to work on a document that you've previously created, you'll click on that second option, and you can browse through your current files, whether they're in your desktop, documents, or specific folders that you yourself have created. But for now, and for the purposes of starting off, what we've done here is created a blank document. And you'll notice a few things. You'll notice that it looks like we're literally looking at a sheet of paper. You'll notice that we have a cursor, which is that blinking line found over here on the top left of the page. And you'll notice that you're in the right place because you see that cursor blinking, which indicates that it's being used, and that if you begin to type on your keyboard, the words will begin to appear. Now, all the way at the top of the screen, you'll see that menu bar, that toolbar that we were discussing earlier, and hopefully you are familiar with some of the things that you see here. You'll also see all the way at the top in the center of the screen, it says Document 1, which is the default name of the document that Microsoft Word created when you built this document. When you created this new document, you, of course, in order to turn back to this document and revise it and continue to work on it and look at it at a later time, you want to ensure to name that document something more appropriate and store it in a proper folder, which we'll show you how to do towards the end. But the idea here is that when you initially create a document, it will be automatically named Document 1, or if you have something already called that, maybe Document 2, and continue to increase from there. But the name of the document will always appear at the top in the center of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and type in something over here. We have, hello, my name is Jordan. And I'll put a period there. And there we go is my first somewhat sentence that I've put in to the top left of our document itself. And you notice that it's pretty standard. If we look at the top over here, which if you look closely, you'll see that the font that's being used is Aptos Body. You'll notice that the size is 12. And you notice that there's really nothing else selected, right? You'll know if something is selected if it's highlighted or indicated by a gray box surrounding the icon. But I can go ahead and, as mentioned, make these formatting decisions, these formatting edits, before or after I've typed in my content. So here in this case, I've already typed in the content, hello, my name is Jordan. I can go ahead now and make those edits by highlighting the text that I want to format, by highlighting the text that I want to edit. That's a very important step. If I begin to make these sorts of edits now for this piece of text without it highlighting, what it will do is it will alter the formatting for the text that will appear now after my cursor. And you'll notice my cursor now is all the way on the right after that sentence. So for future text, edits that I make will begin to be implemented then. But what I want to do is I want to alter the formatting for this phrase here, hello, my name is Jordan. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight these few words by clicking on my trackpad or my mouse, holding and dragging across that phrase of words until the entire selection is highlighted in a specific color. In this case, it's blue. But the idea here is that the computer knows and is aware that I've indicated that the text that I want to manipulate and edit is the text that's highlighted in blue. And now I can go above and make alterations to my formatting, and you'll see in live play, you'll be able to watch your text make those changes. So first, let's look at font. If I click on the drop-down menu, you'll notice that right now, as mentioned, we have Apto selected, which is a pretty standard font. But you'll notice I could scroll down and click on really any of the ones available here. There are many, many, many different types of fonts, and even more creative ones that you could download from the internet itself. We'll switch for the time being to Times New Roman, a font over here. You notice a slightly more formal design of our text. I could do something a bit more fancy, maybe Academy Engraved Let. Something a bit more fancy. I could find a cursive font as well. But you could browse through on your own time different types of fonts. And again, this is to do with style. This is to do with the type, the font, the style of the text that you are using on your document. So for now, I'll use Times New Roman, a very standard font for documents. And again, I'm going to keep my text highlighted in that blue color and make a few other alterations. So there's my 12, which indicates the font size. I can go ahead and click on the 12 and increase this to some larger number. Let's say I put in the number 30, which you'll notice my text now is a bit bigger. It increased my text size. And you'll notice that this is an actual page. So this sentence takes up more than half of the length of the page. I can go ahead and continue to type, and my text will continue to appear, now using the formatting and the edits that I've already set, because I've made those alterations, and as I continue to type, those future words will keep and maintain the same formatting that I've selected, in this case being Times New Roman and font size 30. Now I'll highlight this again, and you'll notice that next to the font size, if I don't want to put in a number, I could simply increase it or decrease it by 1 or 2 digits by simply tapping on the big A or the small a, and my text will begin to increase or decrease. Or I could even use the drop-down menu here for more common results for different font sizes. Under the font size and the font itself, you'll notice we have the B, the I, and the U, which we indicated. I could bold my text, which makes the text a bit stronger. It makes it stand out. I could italicize the text. I could slant it a little bit. And I could underline the text. And you'll notice in this case that you could even overlap and do more than just one at a time. I could find the A with the red underline, which again indicates font color. And I could either click on that specific icon, and it will make the text red. Or if I wanted a different color, there's my drop-down menu, my little arrow pointing down below the A to find other results for different shades and different colors and different pieces of text that I could find. And it's important to note that not all the text on your document has to follow the same formatting restrictions. I can select simply the word Jordan, which I've done now, I've highlighted in blue, and I can go to my menu bar, my toolbar. I can maybe get rid of the bold. You'll notice that it's no longer highlighted in gray. Maybe I could even change the font to something a bit more fancy. And maybe I'll change the color to red. And you'll notice that now, although hello, my name is, and looks like that little period at the end have all remained in Times New Roman in the 28 font size in green with bold, italicize, and underline, this Jordan now has a different font, has a different color, and has made those alterations from the initial text. So you are able to manipulate and select groups of text that you want to play around with in order to ensure that your document is formatted and the text that you put in your document has the appropriate formatting that you're looking for. And it obviously depends on preference and what the document is being created for. You'll notice here that if I go on the top of my menu bar, on the top of my toolbar, right now you'll see the word home is highlighted, which you see and you know it's highlighted because there's that line indicating that this is the page being selected. But there's a bunch of other options here as well, and I'll point out a few of the key components that you should be aware of. If I tap on Insert, I have the ability to put in a few different things. The first being is Picture. If you want to add an image, you're able to do that by tapping on the picture icon under the Insert header. And you'll notice that I can either take a picture from the internet by clicking on Online Pictures, or maybe Photo Browser, which means you'll be able to browse through photos that are saved on your computer itself. So for the purposes of today, if I tap on Online Pictures and I type something like, let's say dog. I type the word dog, you'll notice pictures of dogs will come up, and I could very easily add that to my document by clicking on the image I want to add, and then clicking on Insert, which you'll see all the way at the bottom right of the screen. And once I do that, that image itself will come up, will appear immediately after where my cursor was placed. In this case, it was at the end of this sentence. And it will appear below on my document itself. And I can close out the Online Pictures panel when I'm done with it. I can adjust the sizing of this image by tapping on it and by using the little blocks, the little squares that have been placed on the corners, and simply dragging in or dragging out. I'm holding down on my trackpad or mouse, and I'm bringing my image in or out to make the size of the picture bigger or smaller. But the idea here is that you're able to very easily add images by tapping on Insert, tapping on Pictures, and either finding an image from the internet or from your computer itself. And you'll notice, although images can have formatting, the way that you could have bold, italicized text, it can be underlined, which in this case, you'll notice that the green underline continued over to my picture because I didn't turn those off before pasting the picture. But I could very easily do that by, again, selecting, the same way you selected text. I could select a picture by dragging, holding my mouse or trackpad across it, making sure it's in that blue color, going back to my home, which is where I go for formatting, and then adjusting to get rid of the U, to get rid of that underline, which now has disappeared. B and I seem to be selected because that's what I had over here, but doesn't make much alterations because you can't bold or italicize an image itself. Now, next to Insert, I'm going to skip over Draw and Design and take you to Layout, which you'll notice here. One thing you could do that I'll point out is sometimes you're interested in, as opposed to a portrait document, is a landscape document. So one that appears sideways, which you could adjust by tapping on Orientation, found under Layout, and adjusting from portrait to landscape. You may have to reformat your document a little bit. If it's ever too big or too small, I'll also point out all the way at the bottom right of the screen, there's a bar that allows you to enlarge or to shrink your document. This is not making anything bigger or smaller in the sense of the way that the document is going to appear when printed or publicized online, but it's simply allowing you to enlarge or shrink the document for your own personal viewing benefits. So now you'll see that my document's a bit smaller, but of course I could drag that ball to the right to make it even bigger for easy access and for easier options in terms of formatting and editing. If I go to Review a bit farther down on the right, I'll point out number 1. If you ever want to go and indicate and go through your spelling or grammar, what we call spell check, you're able to do that by tapping on the ABC with the check mark. And what that will do, if I tap on it, is it will go through any of the words currently on my document that either have an issue with spelling or grammar. And it will go through it, and you can either make the alteration or simply click on Ignore if you don't care to make that fix. For example, they might tell you that the name of a person that you know is spelled incorrectly, which of course is not accurate, so you're able to ignore those sorts of spelling errors. But you're able to go through and for the document itself to catch all your spelling and grammar errors by simply tapping on Review in the menu bar, followed by the Spelling and Grammar button over here. And last thing I'll point out under the Review tab is Read Aloud, which is very helpful. If you want to hear the content in your document being read, you could tap on Read Aloud, and the computer, the program itself, in this case Microsoft Word, will read aloud for you the text written on the screen. Obviously, it won't indicate the pictures that you have, but it will read, "Hello, my name is Jordan." And you can really hear this being read. Maybe you're writing a speech and you want to hear how it will sound, or you're writing a letter to someone and you want to hear how they'll be able to read it. Whatever it may be, you just want to make sure things are looking good. This is a very nice feature that allows you to hear your document being read out loud. If you end up having a longer document, in this case we only have a few words, so it's not super tricky to find these words or this section of the document, but you're able on this program itself and on other programs on your computer to use what we call Command or Control F, F standing for Find. And on your keyboard, the Command button on an Apple computer is found directly to the left of the spacebar, and the F, of course, is in the keyboard itself. And if you hold down on Command and you click on F, you'll notice at the top right of the screen, or really anywhere, you'll see this little bubble that says Find with a search bar. And you're able to put in here any sort of keyword that you want to find on your document, which again is very helpful if you have a 20-page document or someone sends you a very long document of rules or guidelines that you want to breeze through and you want to find a specific section. You can go ahead and put into the Command F bar a specific keyword. In this case, I'll put in the word name. And you'll notice that it will highlight and tell me that the word name is in fact here on the document. If I put in a word that's not found there, I will basically see nothing, right? Name L. I put over here, nothing has been highlighted, and in the bar itself, it says 0 of 0. If there was 2 places where it said the word name, those 2 places would come up and it would indicate 1 of 2, and you'll be able to scroll through and see the different results. On a Windows or on a PC computer, you're doing the exact same thing, but instead of Command F, you're clicking on Control F. It's the same concept, but you're using the Control button instead of the Command button in order to open this feature and be able to find information on your document. So the idea here, and what I was trying to go over today, is that using tools like Microsoft Word and other word processors, you're able not just to put in text and to put in images, but to manipulate that text, to format it using some of the features on our home bar, to insert things like images, and of course there's a lot more you could play around with, like shapes, icons, 3D models, and the like, and you're welcome to kind of fiddle with whatever sorts of tools on Microsoft Word you feel will be beneficial to you. You can go to Layout to find the orientation, and of course Review to find spell check, spelling and grammar, and the Read Aloud functionality, allowing you to hear your document being read out loud. And lastly, before we wrap up, I want to show you how you could take the document that you just built and created and save it in a way that you're able to find it later on. So as I mentioned at the beginning, when I first created this document, it was named Document 1, which is the default name for a document created by Microsoft Word when you don't rename it yet. If you want to go ahead and save it and rename it so you're able to find this document later on, you want to go ahead and find at the top left of the screen a little, I don't even know how to describe the icon, but you'll see over here, and I'll make it a bit bigger, this little box with the box at the bottom and the box up top, which if you tap on it, you'll be able to what we call save the document. And by doing that, you're able to put in a specific name for that document under Save As. So I can go ahead here and put in something like, you know, let's say computer class, which is the name now of my document. And then I have Where, which over here indicates desktop, but I can go ahead and put it really wherever I want by tapping on the drop-down menu and by looking at other folders, such as documents, downloads, and folders that you yourself have created. And once I've put in the name of the class, I've indicated where I want it to be saved. You'll see all the way at the bottom right a blue button that says Save, which by clicking on it will take this document and will store it in my desktop called Computer Class. So when I'm going forward to find this document, I could either go to that location if I remember it being there, or I could simply go to search using the term computer class, and I will be able to come across this document itself, whether it be on an Apple computer or on a PC. But the idea here is that instead of keeping all documents as document 1, 2, 3, and 4 without having context of what's represented in the documents, by renaming it and by saving it in locations that make sense for you, you'll be able to find those documents and manipulate them and continue to work on them at a later date. So that was a broad introduction to editing documents. The idea here being that you could use tools, use word processing tools, to bring up different types of documents, whether that be on Microsoft Word, as we did today, or if you're on an Apple computer, you may very well be using Apple's form of Microsoft Word called Pages, and there are many more available. But as I mentioned at the beginning, if you're getting started with these sorts of tools, Microsoft Word is the streamlined kind of beginner's ground and is very user-friendly for beginners to approach not just creating documents and understanding how they work, but also editing documents, adding images, hearing it read aloud, and doing a lot more features built into the tool itself. If you have any more questions on the material covered today, or really anything else with regard to word processors or Microsoft Word, feel free to reach out to us at info@mittlerseniortech.com. Or if you want to explore other classes with us, feel free to visit our website at mittlerseniortech.com. Thank you for watching.